Scaringi Show. And welcome back to the Marc Scaringi Show, your place on the dial for constitutional conservatism. And we're here on WIOO Studios. And you're welcome to call in at 717-697-4297. We'll be with you every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., bringing to you the important political and legal news of the day. And today we're talking about this, what's bubbling over down in Boiling Springs. The South Middleton School District has hired this diversity consultant and is bringing in this program called JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and training the teachers right now on how to be more equitable in academics and discipline and in the curriculum and in all policies and practices towards blacks and minorities. This whole theory is really this critical race theory, which posits that all whites are racist against blacks, and all institutions, and in particular educational institutions, are systemically racist. And so apparently we need diversity consultants to come in and tell us that all white people are racist against blacks. And the JEDI program is about equity, and we're talking about how these race theorists have discarded the word that you and I are very familiar with, which is equality, that everyone is equal before the law, regardless of race. That's, of course, one of the fundamental principles of our country. It's enshrined in the United States Constitution in the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. But these critical race theorists who are now working in the South Middleton School District in Boiling Springs have abandoned equality and replaced it with equity. And I'm saying they're doing so because equity can be defined really however they like it to be defined, however they're defining it. In the courts, we have something called equity, and that's when we go to the judge and we say, Judge, we want you to rule not on the law. We want you to rule on what you think is fair and just. That's what equity is. That's what equitable relief is when you go into court. And so this JEDI program down at South Middleton, they want equitable results in academics, in discipline, and in the other policies and practices of the school district. Not they don't want equality between and among the races as the discipline and academics are instituted upon them. They want equity. And so that's a problem because the entire theory that these JEDI program consultants are teaching in South Middleton is that South Middleton is inherently and systemically racist against blacks, that all whites are racists. And the way forward is to have equitable outcomes, which I assume means that academics and discipline and other practices and policies must have an equitable outcome with blacks. It's, as I say, it's rather vague, and so I guess it leaves a lot to the discretion of the teachers and the administrators as they are trained in this theory, and ultimately they'll come up with the new curriculum and the policies and practices in the upcoming new school year. But as this was controversy, because parents are likely concerned that their white children are going to be shamed into believing that they are inherently and systemically racist, because that is what the critical race theory tells them. That's what the JEDI diversity consultant is teaching the white teachers at South Middleton, that they suffer from something called white privilege. So they are defined by their race. And this is a bad thing if you're white, apparently. And so parents are saying, what is going on here? I'm concerned that my white student is going to be told that he or she is a racist, and that's not good for the child's mental health. And of course, they're right on point. But in any event, I was contacted by one of the leaders of these parent groups who oppose this JEDI program, the critical race theory, about seeing what I could do to look into this matter. And then I was contacted by a parent who was also a substitute teacher at South Middleton, and he had engaged in this parent and substitute teacher had engaged in a series of email communications with the president of the school board, in which he was expressing very politely his opposition to the JEDI program and critical race theory. But apparently the school board president was upset with this parent who became my client with his objections to the JEDI program, and didn't want him objecting anymore to the school board's decision, the administration's decision to move forward with JEDI. So they had the school solicitor send my client a cease and desist letter prohibiting him and threatening legal action if he continues to do so from communicating with the school board and the entire school administration via email, regular email, or telephone. And so obviously the school board president had objected to my client's communications, and we argue because of the content of those communications, because they expressed his opposition to the JEDI program. And so this young parent and substitute teacher retained me. I sent a letter to the solicitor, giving the solicitor 7 days to rescind the cease and desist letter, because I explained that the school board, the school administration, is a government. The government officials, public officials, a government entity, and the government cannot infringe upon a parent, a citizen's rights to free speech that are protected by the United States and Pennsylvania constitutions, and government can't prohibit, restrict, or restrain the right of a parent to communicate his or her objection to a policy of this government entity. And, we parents have these rights. They're enshrined, our protections of those rights are enshrined in the Constitution. And so we took action. And although I gave the school district 7 days to rescind the cease and desist letter, they responded in a matter of mere hours, and they quickly rescinded the cease and desist letter. Probably because they realized they were really wrong on this and on the actions they had taken. So it was a quick, but it was an important victory for the free speech rights of my client, and then and all parents of South Middleton School District students. If they oppose the introduction of critical race theory of this JEDI program in South Middleton, then they have every right to express that objection. They can't be restricted or limited in the expression of those rights. So we're back on track, and my client, who's a parent and a substitute teacher in the district, is once again, he has now had his rights restored, and he is able to express himself, to speak up, and communicate his objections to the JEDI program and critical race theory. But as I said earlier in the program, what is critical race theory? Why is my client, why are many of the parents of South Middleton opposed to critical race theory? Well, I've been looking into it quite a bit since I was brought into the case, and I looked at the email signature of the superintendent of the South Middleton School District, in which he lists the book or books he's currently reading. And I noticed that he is very proudly announcing that he's reading certain books, one of which is a book written by a woman named Robin DiAngelo. And this book is entitled White Fragility. Now, please don't go out and buy this book because you don't want to make this liberal, left-wing former professor of education, Ms. D'Angelo, any richer than she has already made herself by coming up with this theory of white fragility, which is a critical component of critical race theory, which is being incorporated into the JEDI program at South Middleton. She's become rich. She's a paid consultant. She consults. She's hired by corporations and other institutions, of course, including educational institutions that apparently have money to burn. And she comes into these institutions and she consults on white fragility. So don't buy the book. You can Google it, and you can get on YouTube and see lots of lectures by Miss D'Angelo. She's one of the biggest stars of the critical race theory movement. And I'll boil it down for you. In essence, she says that all white people, including the white teachers and administrators and students at South Middleton, suffer from their white fragility. She says they are all racists inherently in their whiteness. She herself is white, and she describes herself as a racist. She maintains that America is systemically racist and it's a white supremacist nation, and this includes all of its institutions, including particularly educational institutions, according to Miss D'Angelo. And so she's saying that all of every white person is racist against blacks and other minorities. And she believes that white people's thoughts and views on racism are illegitimate, that they contribute nothing valid to the discussion on racism. And that's interesting. I think we may have witnessed some of that at South Middleton, where the parent who objects, the white parent who objects to JEDI and critical race theory, is told he may not communicate his objections in the manner in which he had proceeded. That apparently what he has to say is illegitimate, it's invalid, it cannot be expressed. Well, this is what Mr. D'Angelo is saying, is that whites have nothing to valid or legitimate to include in the debate on racism, which is interesting because she herself is white. She also believes that there is something called a white consciousness, and that it's deeply racist against blacks. And we're going to talk more about this critical race theory and the controversy at the South Middleton School District down there in Boiling Springs when we return from this brief commercial